All right, we're going to welcome you guys back to the Principals Podcast. We have in our virtual studio Mr. Bandera up there, who happens to be, again, reminder, assistant principal of the year in the state of Ohio. We have Mr. Hyam down in his lair, along with coach of the year in D3 and Mitch Hewitt. Doug Snyder might be joining us, but it's good to see you all. I know we had a conversation yesterday with Mrs. Bruce. She is a avid listener to this podcast, and which we appreciate, all 6 people that listen to it and then tell their friends. I also talked with Jeremy Guy earlier in the week, and he actually appreciates the fact that as a high school principal and assistant principals that we do a podcast, because he said that's few and far between. And he had you recently on there, Coach Hewitt, for his the MAC podcast. So, Coach Hewitt, it's been several weeks, and we in typical years we could have parades, we can do all that fun stuff, go around in all of our hay wagons on the square like we did in '94, but we're still celebrating. So, are you? I know you're the. I guess I'm gonna let you talk, but sense of relief that we got through the academic season, so that you could have an athletic season.
Yeah, I mean, relief. Like people ask me if I've come down from a high, and it's like I tell people I've slept, which has been fun to do. Yeah, no, I mean the whole season really it's a miracle when you think about all the moving parts that are involved in it, all the things that had to go right, and stuff that usually you only worry so much about like on the field, but I mean it was 3/4 of it was stuff that's outside of the field of play, had nothing to do with your opponents and everything to do with navigating all the landmines that 2020 has put in our place. But yeah, no, I mean it's validating. It confirms what we do here works. When you have the right kids, I tell people all the time we didn't coach differently necessarily this year. It's the right kids. We'll coach the same way next year, minus 26 seniors, and probably won't get the same praise. So we know that's part of being a coach.
We have many. I think talking with Snyder, the number of student athletes that have been recognized for first team nods on both sides of the ball and or second team nods. We have 10 kids and coach of the year all in this season. I mean, what do you say about you talk about your 26, seniors, but you got some underclassmen nominated too for this.
Yeah, I mean, we were senior led, and winning a state title obviously reflects the type of caliber kid we have. It's hard to do without really good players, and the validation of the AllOhio nominations. I mean, there you could make a case that some kids were left out, but we're very grateful. I think we've had the district defensive player of the year in my 10 years here. I think we've had that 5 times, not to mention all the AllOhio nominations. So yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful thing. We do we're all over the 7, 8 counties that surround us. So they're homegrown, and we're proud of that fact. But there's a reason you win postseason awards, and that's because you got really good football players. And academically too, it's one of the things that we parallel it with. When I think it was Mr. Robertson said the last time he had this many people in his chemistry class was the last time they went to state. So there's a direct correlation between academic success and on-field success. Would we like it to be higher and better for every student? No, but we all know it's a numbers game, and you're not going to win them all.
Coach, what was your favorite moment in the last few weeks here? If you had to pick a favorite moment, what was it? Was it when the clock? Or I guess the clock was at 0 as a overtime, but when the field goal was missed, was it the trophy? Was it hugging your wife and kids? What was your favorite moment you had?
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, when you finally know you've won, there's a huge sense of relief. You like literally feel a weight lifted off your chest. So that was pretty good. Just the bus ride home. Yeah, that night. I mean, it's a night that I'll remember for as long as I live. Seeing some of the pictures and the text messages and the videos that people have sent me who I've never met. They've sent me of grown men hugging and crying and out in California and Michigan and Florida, and emails from people who started following us after the Blue Line thing. So a lot of these people have never been to Chardon, but they picked up and they became fans of the program after that. That part's been really cool to see. I mean, yesterday there was a guy, an older gentleman who came from Rocky River to get a picture with the trophy and to buy a shirt, and was born and raised in Chardon. So I think seeing the joy that it's brought people who I've never met, don't know, will never know, has been pretty cool too.
Coach, you speak about over 370 texts or emails that you got that night. Was there any one special one that was surprising or interesting that kind of set the moment? It's like, wow, that was something I didn't expect.
No, I mean, they all meant a lot to me. I think the ones that probably mean more to me than any of them are from past players. And I know they'll never get the credit that they deserve for this title, but I call it a team title, and it's a program title, and they're all a part of the foundation. And I'm not just saying that as like lip service. I mean, without all those teams, 2020 doesn't happen. Because all those kids, those seniors this year, have learned from past players, and they've seen the right way to do things and the wrong way to do things at times. And they meant a lot. And at the same time, I hope they get credit, and I hope they understand that when we say it's a team title, we mean it.
And oftentimes when you win, things kind of roll a little bit, and then you kind of get there again real quick or real soon. Do you see the interest picking up? I know the interest is high already, but do you see a more of a dedication than ever? Have you kids reach out to you that might not have played in the past?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely get emails, and I think the 4 seniors who came out this year who hadn't played is validation too that you can add value without having played in a few years. I think ultimately our 2020, because I had a coach ask me, he was on the West Side, he sent me a text. He's like, what makes this team different than previous teams? And the fact that they were willing to work out when there was such uncertainty and no one was watching, I think is an indication of their success. I think there's a lot of things that go into it, right? You got to be healthy. The ball has to bounce your way at certain times, but love it's a word that's used too much, I think, in America. Without like true definition of it, and there's like an agape aspect to it where it's unconditional. Like these kids were selfless in many respects. They're still kids, but there was a genuine love for one another that you just can't always get every year. And when you include that with really, really hardworking seniors, kids that were hungry and they were going to take advantage of the opportunity, you can get a state title. But yeah, it's a special formula that you can't always recreate. But I think we're in the last, I mean, program wise, we were like, I don't know, something like, I think we had 2 losses, and they were to Hoban and St. Ed's. So from 8th, 9th, JV and varsity, the program's in pretty good position. So yeah, kids are hungry, but time will tell.
I heard walking out of that stadium, a group of 8th graders that two boys, pretty strong athletes, that said, we are going to be on this field or, in the game in 3 years, 3 to 4 years, our grade will be here again, which is a great feeling for these kids. We talk about culture and climate here just as educators, because we want to really establish the right culture and climate for our students and our staff, and then you apply that to the football program. That's one of the key things that people have said to me in the last 3 weeks, is that this culture bred this success, the culture, the belief, all in. Obviously, you need dudes along the line, but the culture does play a huge role, because you had guys, next guy in coming into play. When you had injuries throughout the year, the next guy, because they really work hard and establish within that culture. I have a couple questions for you because I've never physically won a state championship in football, but we've won 2 in baseball. And I always have told other coaches in baseball, on top of culture, that a good pitching rotation and an extraordinary defense will take you far into the playoffs, and then timely hitting. What would you say, because of football, played a card for the success this year?
And I think like sort of like love, I think culture sometimes can be overused too, because it's things that everyone says, but they're much harder to obtain, right? And I think when you look at like the kind of kids we have, that's a byproduct of parents, right? Like we're still in a community that values hard work, because we're not easy on these kids, and we demand certain things, and we get after them a little bit, and I don't know that that's always is accepting in some communities. So from that standpoint, like it was a community victory in that regard. What I mean, it's health, like it's health in a non-COVID year. I mean, the last 2 years, we've people forget this, but we've made the playoffs with backup quarterbacks, which is really hard to do. Like in some ways, you can be coach of the year this year with a bunch of talent, but in years where you're trying to go 7-3 with minimal talent, like I always say, it's like an analogy, like you show up to like a bonfire and I got like 2 rocks and we're trying to bang them. This year, you show up to a bonfire and you got a flamethrower on your back. So from that standpoint, it makes life a lot easier. But yeah, I mean, young kids tasting success. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I like to take my kids out occasionally to like a nice dinner, or I like to take them on a vacation. Like I want them to experience certain things that they know if they work hard enough, they can achieve these types of goals. So having a bunch of 8th graders, 9th graders see what Massillon looks like, yeah, I mean, I think it's going to fuel the fire. It also pains me to think about what that place would have been like in a normal year. I mean, just again, the absence of pep rallies, the absence of a student section. I mean, now in some ways, because it was broadcast all over the globe, in some ways more people saw the game. I think it was like 100 and some thousand people from max preps. I think the state totals from Spectrum were close to 15,000 viewership. So that's pretty remarkable. You lose a little bit of like the direct environment, but the fact that so many people got to see family members and just community members was pretty cool.
Coach, have you or will you watch the game back?
Yeah. I mean, I'll watch that one. I haven't watched 98, the one that I played in. But yeah. And it's like you still watch it like as a critical coach. Like there was probably 3 or 4 calls offensively. Like there was 2 really bad calls that we should have, like in hindsight, right, as 2020. There was a call. It's interesting how play calling works. One of the play calls late we should have called, but in the back of Coach Navs' mind, he was still thinking of 1998. So I tell people this, that here's a guy calling plays in a state title game in 2020 that's thinking about a game that took place in 1998, and it was a sack on a boot play that impacted that call a few weeks ago. So, yeah, I mean, you still watch it from like a coaching perspective, but there were some incredible performances. I mean, Drew Fetchick probably played one of the games of I don't know, of all time, probably from a Chardon Hilltopper standpoint. He was pretty flawless, crazy. And I don't know that like even like the week before I would have totally seen that coming. I mean, I knew he was going to play well, but that's a huge stage to play that well.
I think about every week this year, I think I looked at Drew. I'm like, so what are you going to do? Like throw up like, 300 passing yards? And he always just looks at me and just laughs. And I'm always like,
it's crazy.
And then I almost did that. So yeah, I always pick on him every week. I'm like, you're a running team, whatever. And then he,
right.
So
yeah, when Chardon struggles to run the ball and we struggle at times to stop the run, we're like 0-100. And that was a game now late. We figured out we controlled number 28, but we still struggle to run the ball and to throw for 250 yards and a half. I think that's a testament to our staff, our players, and the fact that we're not stubborn enough. And I think we realized that last year. I mean, it's funny you forget in Elite 8 performance against Aurora last year that we had a lead in, and I think as a staff we walked away from that game and knew we had to make changes. And it's a constant evolution of it for sure.
Hey, Coach, when you win a state title, there's a lot of schools that won't play you. Is there some schools that have called you that have, that want to get you on the schedule now?
No, we don't get those calls, but like the schools that will be like the Hobans and the Eds and things like that. I don't know that the West G game is going to happen this year, which is unfortunate because I think it's a great gate. I think it's two rivalry schools in the same county, same size. But my understanding is that they're not interested in playing or renewing that contract, which is unfortunate. A lot of the private schools have openings and availability. With the uncertainty of Brush being in the league next year, we don't know that we'll have a week 7 game. So right now we have a week 1, 3, and a 7. And one of the things that we include in our emails out to these schools is that like we are graduating 26 seniors. I mean, we're going to return 2 starters. So I can tell that to our parents, and they're still going to expect an undefeated state title. But the reality is when you graduate that much talent, it's really hard to replace. By the time you get good in high school, it usually means you're a senior. We're going to have to battle that next year for sure because expectations never become less.
I have a question for you for 2020 has been one of those years. Let's say we're going to make a feature film on Chardon High School for the football season. There's going to be a documentary. ESPN's going to roll in it. Who's going to play you in this role? Who are some of the actors that are going to be featured in the Chardon film?
This is I don't even know any actors' names. Oh man, there's literally no right answer I can make here without being made fun of for this. So yeah.
All right, I'll ask Bandera. Bandera, who would you put as the actor playing Coach Hewitt?
That's a tough question.
Rock.
Yeah, there you go. Any Disney character, any animated Disney character with a big chin, like a Buzz Lightyear looking dude, or like a Mr. Incredible thing. I got that chin, right? I got to shave it too. So, yeah, anything like that, right? Maybe that's the best way to do it as an animation, and then you could come up with a bunch of big chin Disney characters. Yeah.
All right, you got any characters that will play Coach?
Hi.
Yeah, I like The Rock. I think Rock is perfect. If Coach has the bull, on his arm, it'd be even perfect match there.
I like it.
What is your favorite football game or football movie to watch?
I mean, Rudy still probably makes me cry at the end. That's an incredible, true story. Remember the Titans is tremendous given the circumstances and the fact that it was a true story. But I'm not a big sport movie guy. It's like when I was in college and I never played football video games. It was just I get enough of it in my daily life that I like to probably do something else with it. But Rudy and Remember the Titans are probably my two go-to.
He's a criminal justice man. He's watching all those criminal movies and psychological thrillers.
Yeah. Well, that stuff I get into. Yeah. And then I start to binge watch it. And the next thing you know, my kids are tapping me on the forehead. I don't even know they're there.
And next thing you know, you're watching How to Get Away with Murder, all these other shows. And
they're out there, believe me. Yeah. What's up? See, I got kids now.
Yeah, put them on. Why not? It's a podcast.
All right, give me 1 second.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tomorrow is a very special day. You have Justin's coming in. So who is part of that whole team of guys that helped design that ring?
Well, the first person I called was Coach Laverty over at Kirtland because there's no greater resource than someone who knows how to design rings because Lord knows they've won enough of them. It was sort of unique because, he's going to have 100 rings. We're going to have 100 rings. Kirtland girls soccer won a state title. So we sort of leveraged our championships against a few competing companies to broker a pretty good deal. So that's an economics lesson locally. But our seniors developed them, and I was a little nervous about that because I thought there'd be too many voices and opinions in that room, but they figured it out, and we made some tweaks. I'm still a bit of a fashionista. I like to consider myself. So, but they did a good job. They designed something that I think is insanely obnoxious, will almost be impossible to wear, but it's what they want. And it'll be more of like a display piece potentially, unless you want to look like Mr. T when you're out on the town. But it's cool. And it's something that I think was a driving force all season long was ring season. And occasionally we would send them like ring pictures throughout the year. And it's good to be motivated by that. Like sometimes it can take away from the task at hand, but it's still good to know what your goals and things are at the end of the season.
Coach, you talk about sending those pictures. You know, there's that mindset by coaches that they don't want to talk about some of those things. You know, it's like it's the, you know, but I've heard you say you got to embrace the moment. You got to talk about it. You got to have them thinking about it. Was that the mindset all year, knowing the senior group you had?
Yeah, I mean, and I think that there's a time and a place for that, right? Like you know, on Thursday, Fridays, like that's not when we're talking about it. But on Monday, when you might be struggling to get a kid to give everything he's got in practice, that's when you drop those reminders. You know, and it's like all of us, right? Like it's easy to be excited on Friday, but it's hard to be excited on Monday. So you got to drop those things throughout the week. And when you're sensing sort of a change in focus in your team. So yeah, I mean, that's yeah, but you're right. Like I don't know that Nick Saban would ever do something like that. Being around Urban Meyer would come to you around your, like for bed checks when we were on road games, playing for a MAC championship game, and he would show some of his championship rings. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a time and a place for that for sure.
Coach, my last question for you is, you've been around football for a very, very long time. I don't know how many years you've played or, you know, coached or whatever it might be, but would you say this was one of the toughest years, one of the easier years? I know it's not probably the easiest, but how would you classify this year?
Exhausting and extremely rewarding. I mean, like I have notes, and I wanted to do this after the season so I didn't forget various things, but I made notes of sort of what the 2020 season was for us as a staff. And a lot of it too isn't always like sunshine. Like it's not, again, it's not your opponent. It's as you guys know, the craziness of things that happened. And, you know, we joke about like the fact that like usually like a season is like a chapter in a book. I feel like this was its own separate book. And I'm grateful. You know, I don't think the final game could have gone any differently. I think it needed to be that way. I think it was symbolism of what 2020 was, with a bunch of opportunities to give up and quit. And you know, kids battled, but I've slept good over the last week and a half, and that was something that I desperately needed to do.
Hey, Coach, I got one last question. You're probably not going to want to answer it, but you know that those fans out there always like to fantasize about that unique matchup, or that, you know, that matchup to truly see who the best is. Is there a school out there that if you could have played the following week, you would have wanted to play?
Well, everyone would have picked Kirtland, right? I mean, like that's an obvious choice because the two area teams that won a state title, I think two very similar cultures and programs and in communities. I mean, I think there's a lot of similarities between the two schools. Obviously, they've had more success at the state level, but I mean, we're a program as a public school that's, I think, second maybe to them, maybe, or third maybe to Menor if you throw in there, but even Menor hasn't won a title. So yeah, I mean, that would have been sort of a cool matchup. You know, if they could have done like a charity game of some sort, but yeah, what could have, should have, would have been, right? But yeah, that would have been something.
The last thing we always do is opportunities for gratitude. So is there anyone to give a shout out to before we close this podcast?
Yeah, I mean, it's I think there's like an endless list of people to give thanks to. Obviously, you guys with the support, and again, it's easy for me to say that because you're my bosses, but like I talk to people at other programs, other schools, and they lack the administration support. And you guys know that it's like you get emails every other day, sometimes 3 or 4 a day, and it's just nowadays there's so many keyboard warriors out there, and there's so many more fires to put out that are beyond any of our scopes. But it still falls at our table and our desk, and we have to try to figure out what's best to do with that. I got a great staff. I got great players. I hope it remains for a long time. I get nervous when all these job openings come up with Solon, Perry, Euclid. Chagrin Falls just opened up. I mean, these are all primetime positions. St. Joe's is open, and I got a bunch of staff members that could easily be head coaches. So it's like just like winning a state title is a team title. Coach of the year is the biggest joke in the world, because like if I showed up for the state game by myself, we'd have lost by 100. So I think head coaches get too much credit when we win, and I think sometimes they get too much blame when we lose. But I'm grateful for the people that we have around us, and I hope to see all these faces back.
Well, we appreciate you joining us on this podcast. This time without.
I'm sure it won't work. It'll probably get deleted between now and the upload time. But
yeah, well, that podcast that we did prior to the state game was epic, but there was major technical difficulties. I don't get it, but there's 6 people that heard it.
Yeah, it was fun.
We'll see you up here tomorrow. What time's we start for you guys?
Yeah, it's all staggered. So 3, 3:15, 3:30, 3:45, and 4 o'clock. And yeah, that's an exciting day. The rendering of it, the drawing of it, and is out there. I don't know that it's been shared yet with the whole population, what they're going to do with that, but I for sure want to do the ring ceremony if we're all allowed back in the weight room, because I feel like that's where rings are won. And that's where, when I think about handing out rings, I'd like it to be somewhere down in our dingy, dusty weight room. Actually, it's been pretty clean. So
it's pretty clean.
Good job, Dee Dee.
All right. Well, you enjoy today. We will certainly see you tomorrow. Thanks for all that you're doing, especially in this virtual world, to support students. And we will see you tomorrow. So take care.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.